So, as you all know, funding for the government runs out on February 8th. So, we are facing potentially another government shutdown. Now, you may be wondering how that's still a possibility if Democrats decided, for the most part, to cave. Well, according to a new article released by Politico, in spite of the fact that Democrats have stated their intent to cave, there still is a relatively high likelihood that the government could in fact shut down on February 8th if congressional Democrats and Republicans don't come to any sort of agreement. As Politico reported on January 24th, when it comes to the upcoming debate, Senate Democrats are willing to drop their demand that relief for Dreamers be tied to any long-term budget agreement, a potential boost for spending talks, but one that could face opposition from their House counterparts. We're viewing immigration and spending on separate terms because they are on separate paths, Senate Minority Whip Dick Durbin said Tuesday. So you'd think that if Democrats not only caved in the first government shutdown, but they caved again before the government even shut down for a second time in 2018, why would we even face a possibility of another shutdown? Because Republicans are in control of Congress, they're in control of the White House, so they should just be able to pass a spending bill, right? Well, logically, that should be the case, but that isn't the case. So Rachel Bade and Burgess Everett explain, party leaders are already pointing fingers at each other, a discouraging sign for the long-stalled talks that could lead to more short-term funding measures both parties loathe. Republicans say Democrats are divided over whether they can agree to a budget accord without a solution for Dreamers. Democrats, meanwhile, say Republicans are getting nervous about increasing defense and domestic spending by more than $100 billion. Lawmakers are only in session for 2 days this week before House and Senate Republicans leave town for their annual retreat, kicking nearly all budget discussions into the following week, when they'll have only 3 days to come up with a solution for raising stiff spending caps. Since this fall, Democrats have refused to agree to long-term funding legislation absent an agreement to shield hundreds of thousands of young undocumented immigrants from deportation. But after the shutdown, some Senate Democrats have indicated a willingness to decouple the two items and move forward with a 2-year spending accord. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer prefers to handle immigration and spending at the same time, but has not vowed to tank a budget deal that lacks protections for Dreamers. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, on the other hand, has continued to insist the two issues be linked. Democrats are demanding that any increase in defense spending, a key 2018 priority for President Donald Trump, be accompanied by dollar-for-dollar increases in non-defense Democratic priorities. According to Republican sources, leaders are discussing equivalent increases in both, but some conservatives are uncomfortable with such drastic hikes to spending. So, you know how in Washington, D.C., our government is super dysfunctional because both parties can never come to the table and agree to anything? Well, the reason why the government might shut down again is because both parties now have internal disagreements. So, when it comes to Democrats, Senate Democrats have decided to fold completely. They don't even want to try to protect Dreamers in this next round of budget talks. They've decided to fold, but House Democrats, they don't want to fold. They still want to hold strong because they should do that. So kudos to Nancy Pelosi, I guess, for having a spine, but I don't know how long that's going to last. And then on the Republican side, they want to increase spending, but of course, fiscally conservative Republicans don't want to go along with what Donald Trump is pushing for, a plan to increase spending. So here's how this is going to play out. If I had to guess, the parties will probably solve their internal conflicts ahead of budget talks, but when it comes to whether or not Republicans and Democrats can agree to anything, Republicans will accuse Democrats of not caring about the military, since they're not on board with an increase in military spending, and Democrats will fold immediately and not even think twice about doing so, even if it makes them look foolish. So Democrats, even though they're holding strong now in the House, they could fold before then. So we might not see a government shutdown unless Republicans don't resolve their disputes. So they don't really know what they want to do yet, and time's ticking. They're running out of time, and then they're going to go on their retreat, and then they'll have 3 days to discuss it, making a government shutdown even more likely. So that's why it's still very likely that the government could shut down. But do you want to know the solution that's being pushed? You're not going to be surprised by it. Well, they are floating, Republicans specifically are floating, another stopgap measure that funds the government temporarily for another month. If you can't even fund the government, then you don't know how to govern, and you shouldn't be governing. So the fact that we're even talking about the possibility of a shutdown is absolutely absurd to me. Democrats should have held strong the first time around. But, I mean, again, there was big talk at first after they voted to reopen the government. Chuck Schumer was saying, well, you know what, the wall's off the table now. And before they even started talking about funding, ahead of the February 8th deadline, Chuck Schumer decided to fold. So basically, they caved twice in a week. These parties are a joke. Why are they governing if they aren't even doing the most minimal thing that's expected of senators and representatives? You can't even pass a funding bill. What are you doing there? It's time to leave. Pack it up and go home. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You have to keep passing these stopgap funding measures because your own parties can't agree. And finally, when they come to negotiate with each other, you have Republicans that strong-arm Democrats. They cave immediately, and really, Republicans just have to worry about getting their own party on board. That's what it's all about. I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless because this is a joke. We should not be talking about another government shutdown, but certainly if the government's going to shut down, there better be a damn good reason for it. I better see Democrats fighting to protect dreamers because that's the right thing to do. Donald Trump said that he killed DACA because he wants Congress to pass a fix. Hold him accountable. Why are you not doing that? You had the momentum, and really they squandered it. So going into this next round of negotiations, they already shot themselves in the foot, but they shot themselves in the foot again by caving before they even started talking. I mean, this is just unbelievable. It's a joke.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.